Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So I was figuring out how best to start from the beginning. So a lot of people start from 2019, which is kind of where the legal problems start. Um, but I mean, it goes back further than that, right? He came here undocumented, across the border through Texas when he was a kid. I think 15 or 16, right? And I tried to figure out like the best way to go through that timeline. Actually, you can do that with the initial lawsuit. So after he was deported in March of 2025, about a week later, his wife and the lawyer team, the legal team, they filed a lawsuit and they give a pretty good description in that lawsuit. So what we're going to do is we're going to read through that. You can actually look at the court docket itself and you can look at the entire update of what's going on in his case, what went on in his case. There's a few sources that you can use. This one is called Civil Rights Litigation Clearinghouse. All right, Civil Rights Litigation Clearinghouse. You can look up a lot of different case IDs. That's where we're going to get started here. All right, so we're going to go to advanced search, and I think the case 4628283. 46283 should be it. Yep, that's it. All right, we're going to click on that. And as you can see, we have this is the initial filing from Garcia's legal team and his wife. I think right here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the parties. Yeah, legal background. Okay. Facts. That's where we're gonna get started, and that's gonna tell us the story that's gonna be relevant for us. So plaintiff Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador and no other country. He is not a member of or has no affiliation with, I don't know how to pronounce that, MS-13, or any other criminal or street gang. Although he has been accused of general gang affiliation, the U.S. government has never produced an iota of evidence to support this unfounded accusation. Garcia has no criminal history. He has never been charged or convicted of any charges in the United States, El Salvador, or any country. Remember that. When he was around 16 years old, he fled gang violence beginning around 2006. He was around 9 or 10 years old in 2006. Gang members had stalked, hit, and threatened to kidnap and kill him in order to coerce his parents to succumb to their increasing demands for extortion. And that's the reason why he fled. Sometime around 2011, Garcia entered the United States without inspection. He made its way to the state of Maryland, where his older brother, a U.S. citizen, resided in the United States. Garcia has only ever resided in Maryland. 2016, he met Jennifer Vasquez Sura, a U.S. citizen with 2 U.S. citizen children from a prior relationship. Over time, they became close and became romantically involved. They ended up becoming pregnant with child. He supported himself, her, the 2 children through the work constructing the construction energy industry. So this is where things start getting. This is where all this started in March of 2019, exactly 6 years ago. So he went to a Home Depot in Hyattsville, Maryland, to solicit employment, trying to get a job. When he arrived, there were 3 other young men who were also at Home Depot soliciting employment, 2 of whom he recognized from prior occasions at the Home Depot, though he had never interacted with them in any other context. The young men proceeded to chat to pass the time. At around 2:27 p.m., while the 4 of them were chatting, a detective approached the group. The detective did not speak to Garcia, but only one of the other men. Soon after, officers from Prince George's County Police Department, noted as PGPD for the rest of the complaint, arrived on scene and proceeded to handcuff all 4 young men, including Garcia. At no point did the police explain why they were arresting Garcia, nor was he ever charged with any crime, and that was his first and only time in state custody. Again, 2019. At the police station, the 4 young men were placed into completely separate rooms and questioned. He was asked if he was a gang member. When he told the police he was not, they said they didn't believe him and repeatedly demanded that he provide information about other gang members. The police told Garcia that he would be released if he cooperated. Remember that. But he repeatedly explained that he did not have any information to give because he did not know anything. Garcia was then transferred to another room, and he was told that ICE officers would be coming to take him into federal immigration custody. And then they arrived and took him into detention. The following day, he was served with the notice to appear, commencing removal proceedings against him. And the only thing that he's ever like had against him in an illegal sense was 8 USC 1182, which is an alien present in the United States without being admitted or paroled. Right? It just means you're here without documentation. Okay. No other charges. Remember that. April 24th, he appeared for his first hearing in immigration court through counsel. He moved for release on a bond pursuant to 8 USC 1226. So he's requesting bond, submitting over 70 pages of evidence in support thereof. ICE opposed the change in custody status, arguing that he presented a danger to the community because the local police had supposedly verified that he is an active gang member. Now, question, how the fuck? They never interacted with this guy. How do they know that he's a gang member? Well, let's figure that out. In support thereof, ICE offered a gang-filled interview sheet generated by PGPD. The GFIS explained that the only reason to believe Garcia was a gang member was that he was, one, wearing a Chicago Bulls hoodie and hat, and that a confidential informant advised that he was an active member of MS-13 with the Westerns clique. The GFIS had been entered in the PGPD's database at 6:47 p.m., approximately 4 hours after police met him for the first time. Okay, so let's take a pause real quick. Let's try to understand what the fuck just happened, okay? Don't know who this guy, they don't know who Garcia is. They have no idea if he's a gang member. He meets these guys at Home Depot the first time that he's ever like actually chatted with them and interacted with them, right? Looking for employment at Home Depot. They get arrested. And then 4 hours after they get arrested, all of a sudden, there's a gang-filled interview sheet that says Garcia is a gang member. Okay? And the two pieces of evidence that they give is the Chicago Bulls hoodie and hat and some confidential informant advising that he was an active gang member. Now, who do we think this confident, like if with the balance of probabilities, within 4 hours of first meeting this guy, who's this confidential informant, do we think? Can anybody guess? Can anybody want to take a wild guess on who this confidential informant was? I'll wait for the comments. Obama. Was it Home Depot? Maybe it was the manager of Home Depot. So I think, based on the balance of probabilities, it was either no one, or it was one of these three fucking guys that was at Home Depot who he doesn't know. And remember how they said, hey, you will be released if you cooperate. Why wouldn't we expect them to say that to the other people? Why wouldn't I expect that one of these random guys that you just met that day, why would I not expect them to say, oh yeah, I know him, he's in the MS-13, and then I get released? Why would I not expect that? Or that the cop just made it up. I think it's more likely that it's the Home Depot guys, but why would I not expect that it's like 4 hours? 4 hours, 6:47 p.m. Remember, like 2:27 p.m. of that same day. They were chatting and a detective approached them. 6:47, he's a gang member. And I want to remind everybody that those two pieces of evidence, the Chicago hoodie and the hat, and this magically appearing gang member identification from this confidential informant, those are the only evidence that conservatives will ever be able to give you that he is that he's a gang member. It's not even evidence, honestly. It's not even admissible as evidence in court because by definition it's hearsay. Hearsay by definition is out of court testimony. It wasn't presented in court. Garcia was not able to cross-examine the person who made the claim. So it's never been litigated. Nobody actually, oh, you heard that he was an MS-13 gang member? All right, appreciate you. That's enough. Now, you can't present that in evidence in court. You can present that in evidence in a bond hearing. In a bond hearing, you can just like all the judge has to hear is, there was a hearsay. This guy said that. Okay, I'll just not give him bond. That's it. That's all you need. But that's not admissible in a court trial. Because how the fuck do we even know that there was a confidential informant if I can't question him or cross-examine him? No other evidence that he was part of a gang. Those are the only two pieces of information. The GFIS, the gang filled interview sheet right here. He was wearing a hoodie, and some random guy said that he heard that he was an MS-13 gang member. And by the way, he was part of the Westerns clique. They said that he was part of the Westerns clique, which operates out of Long Island. So I want to know, has Garcia ever lived in Long Island? So anyway, so all we have is a claim. Now, my question to conservatives at this point is, if just accusations that haven't been litigated in a court system are justification to say that you are X or whatever the accusation is, I want to know how they feel about E. Jean Carroll and the fact that Donald Trump was accused of sexually abusing a woman, and it was rung through the court system, and he was held civilly liable. I want to know if you had somebody who was here on like a student visa, or maybe they like, do you think that if they were held civilly liable for sexual abuse that they should be deported? My question. According to the Department of Justice and the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, the Westerns clique operates in Brentwood, Long Island, New York, like I just said, a state that he has never lived in. Okay, this is where things get a little juicy too. The attorney for Garcia subsequently made multiple attempts to obtain additional information from law enforcement concerning those MS-13 allegations. They indicated that it did not have an incident report related to the Home Depot. Oh, they put Home Depot. They spelled it wrong. Home Depot episode at all, nor did the department have any incident reports containing his name. But the Hyattsville City Police Department, on the other hand, confirmed it had an incident report for the Home Depot incident, but that only 3 people were named, and Garcia was not one of them, nor did it have any incident reports with his name in its database. His attorney also contacted the Prince George's Police Department Inspector General, requesting to speak to the detective who authorized the GFI sheet, but was informed that the detective had been suspended. A request to speak to other officers in the gang unit was declined. So, like, what is this, like a week or so? A week or so after this motherfucker wrote this fucking GFIS sheet, he had been suspended. Home Depot, yeah. That's crazy. So here's where the Trump administration kind of gets involved, and here's where they screwed up, right? So he filed what is called an I-589 application for asylum, withholding of removal, and protection under the Convention Against Torture with the Baltimore Immigration Court, and was scheduled for an individual hearing. His individual hearing spanned over 2 days, August 9, 2019, September 27, 2019. Okay, so what we're going to do, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Okay, this is the form. Application for asylum and for removal. It's about, I don't know, like 10 pages or so. A lot of information that you need to fill out. But basically, you can apply for 2 different things. Asylum, withholding of removal. Asylum, you're going to want that because it offers more benefits. For example, if you have family in the place that you're trying to claim asylum, the country that you're trying to claim asylum from, right, you can actually bring them to you in the United States. You don't get that sort of benefit with withholding or removal. But both of them protect you from deportation legally. If you file this form and it's granted, you are legally allowed to be here. You are a legal occupant of the United States, not a citizen. You're not a citizen, right? Asylum, I think you get a path to citizenship. Withholding of removal, it's a lot more difficult to get a path to citizenship. But nonetheless, you are protected by the law from being removed. Okay. Now, how do you get a withholding or removal? What you have to do is actually the standard of higher for withholding or removal. What you have to do is prove that if the United States government were to be deporting you back to the specific country that they're intending to deport you back to, you have to prove with the preponderance of evidence that it's more likely than not that you will be severely harmed as a result. Murder, things like that. So you have to prove that, and guess what? He proved it. He proved with his lawyers that it was more likely than not. He did exactly what the government asked him to do. That it was more likely than not that if they deported him to El Salvador, he would be severely harmed, and the government there would not protect him. Right? And he was right. Okay? The thing with I-589 applications for the withholding or removal order, they're very narrow in scope, right? That means the government just can't deport you to that country. The government could have deported him to any other country as long as they would have accepted him. Fucking Germany, Mexico, whatever, right? They just cannot. It is illegal. That's the point. That's the whole point of this entire constitutional crisis. That it is illegal to remove him to El Salvador. The fact that he's going into a fucking basically death camp or gulag, that's adding insult to the injury. He should not be deported to El Salvador. That is against the law. Now, if you want to, if you are the Department of Homeland Security, if you have a person who is granted a withholding order, right? You have 30 days after the grant to ask for a review or some sort of appeal of that. And what you have to do as the government is now present a preponderance of evidence that he is not deserving of this withholding order. You want to guess what the Trump administration did not do in 2019 after he was granted that? You want to guess what they did not do? They did not challenge that withholding order. If they truly believed that he was an MS-13 member, withholding order void. If they truly believe that he was an MS-13 gang member, that he was a fucking terrorist, as Bukele said, that he was a threat and a danger to society, if they truly believe that, surely they had enough evidence that would make it more likely than not that he is a danger to the community, and it justifies repealing that withholding order. They did not do that within 30 days. He has to be, the whole due process. You have 30 days, and then the court has to notify him that the government is intending to repeal his withholding order, and he gets brought into court. He's able to cross-examine. They're able to put evidence against evidence. That's the whole due process. They did not do that. They refused to do that in 2019. He had a year to do that. He did that for other people. He didn't do that for Garcia. Okay. So that withholding order was here since 2019. It was in force since 2019, all the way up until March. They never repealed it. They never asked for them to open up the case. So it is a very blatant thing. There's no getting around this. No legal scholar, no judge, no lawyer is going to tell you that the Trump administration did not commit a fucking crime. They did what was illegal. They deported somebody who the law said is illegal to deport to El Salvador. That's it. That's the entire argument, right? And there's a lot more between, but that is the entire argument. October 10th, 2019, he was granted withholding of removal pursuant to 8 U.S.C. 1232 after the immigration judge agreed that he had established it was more likely than not that he would be persecuted by gangs in El Salvador because of a protected ground. ICE did not appeal the grant of relief, and Garcia was then promptly released from custody. He went home to his wife and children. They have continuously resided in Prince George's County, Maryland. His child needs them. They had a disability on the head, also had like intellectual disability, speech disorder. To this day, he is unable to verbally communicate at 5 years old, and in October 2024, he was diagnosed with autism. They work to support their family of 5. He's a union member. He's employed full-time as a first-year sheet metal apprentice. He's been pursuing his own license at the University of Maryland. Okay. And as a condition of withholding a removal status, he is required to check in with ICE once a year and has been fully compliant. He appeared for his most recent check-in January 2nd, 2025, without incident, and had no contact with law enforcement. He's never been arrested or charged with any crime. Now, what happened on the day of the deportation? In early afternoon of Wednesday, March 12th, 2025, after completing a shift as a sheet metal worker apprentice at a new job site in Baltimore, he picked up his 5-year-old son from his grandmother's house. While driving with his son, by the way, they're trying to keep the son's name private, protect their identity. But that fucking vermin, Kristen Noem, released documents today that had his full name out there. without blacking out the name. That fucking, oh my God. And Garcia was pulled over by ICE officers acting at the discretion and under the supervision of Defendant Baker's predecessor in office. One ICE officer who identified himself as part of Homeland Security investigations told Garcia that his status had changed. So this motherfucker lied to him because his status never changed. He's still under removal, withholding removal order. Status never changed. Lied to him. Within minutes, he was handcuffed and detained in one of the ICE vehicles. They called his wife. By the way, his fucking son is in the back seat. 5-year-old son in the back seat. They pull him over, handcuff him, and then they fucking call his wife and say, "Hey, come get him within 10 minutes, or your child is gonna be handed over to CPS. You have 10 minutes to get here, or we're gonna send your child to CPS." She arrived at the scene. She was able to briefly talk with Garcia, who appeared confused, distraught, and crying. Moments later, he was then driven away. No explanation was provided to Jennifer as to why her husband was detained, where he was going, or what happened. She couldn't find him. She tried to locate him through the ICE detainee locator system. She called various immigration detention centers and facilities. It appeared that between Wednesday, March 12th and Saturday, March 15th, he was moved to various different locations across the country. The evening after his arrest, she received a call from Garcia. At the time, it appeared he was in Baltimore. During that conversation, he said that he was being questioned about gang affiliations. He reportedly informed his interviewers that he was never a gang member and had no gang affiliations. He was shown several photos where he appeared in public and asked about other people in those photos. He was unable to provide any information about them, as he did not know them or anything about them. He also told his wife that he had been told that he would be going before an immigration judge and then be released. Never went before an immigration judge, by the way. Received a call from Garcia in the evening and told his wife that he believed that he was then now in Louisiana, but was not sure that he'd been moved around so many times. Indicated to his wife that he was very confused, but he is still being assured that he will be brought before an immigration judge soon. Due process, right? In an attempt to ascertain his actual location and find further information about his arrest and detention, Cyril called different detention centers trying to speak with someone. She recalls one brief conversation where she was told that El Salvador was asking for him. Her attempts to protest by saying that she had won protection from being removed to El Salvador fell on deaf ears. And then March 15th, she received her last call from Garcia. During that conversation, he said that he was being held by ICE in Texas. And then that's when it was relayed to him that he was being deported to El Salvador, specifically to CCOT. Since that conversation, March 15th, exactly 1 month ago, 1 month and 1 day ago, she has not had any further contact with Garcia. And then, check this out. The following day, on Sunday, March 16th, she was sent a photo from a news article discussing the deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members that were deported without a hearing. The photo showed men kneeling on the ground. I think we've all seen that photo. A lot of us have. With their shaved heads bowed with their arms over their heads. Their faces were not visible. Upon inspection, she identified one of these men as her husband, given his distinctive tattoos and 2 scars on his head. For the next few days, they continued to indicate that Garcia was located in the detention center in Texas. All right. So you have this ICE detainee locator saying that he's in Texas when he's actually already in fucking El Salvador on the news under Donald Trump's propaganda. Watching the news, she was horrified to see more photos of CCOT prisoners that included her husband and a video where Garcia was frog walked through the CCOT prison. Garcia's family subsequently hired a lawyer in El Salvador who has confirmed that he is, in fact, being held in CCOT. The lawyer has ascertained that to that date, there are no known criminal charges levied against Garcia in El Salvador either. So if any fucking Trump supporter tries to tell you, okay, yeah, no crimes in the U.S., but he probably committed a crime or something in El Salvador. Nope, no crime in any country ever. And this is what I was saying. They took no steps to reopen the removal case of Garcia, nor to rescind his order of withholding removal. There's a specific process that the government has to go through to deport this man, and they did not go through that process. They said, fuck the law, fuck your court order, we are going to deport him. Fuck you. All of that is to say, the first step in all this is that Donald Trump's administration illegally deported this man. They did not go through any due process. They illegally deported this man. Which I don't know if I'm getting my definition wrong, but that is kidnapping. If you unlawfully abduct somebody against their consent and then you traffic them and then you basically torture them because you're paying El Salvador to keep them there, how is that not kidnapping? How is that not human trafficking? How is that not torture? I want to know. It is, and I just found out another one whose parents said they felt like he was kidnapped. Yeah. So, judge, it got handed over to the District Court of Maryland, obviously. They said a native he was granted withholding removal in 2019, which prohibited his removal to El Salvador. The record reflects that he was apprehended in Maryland without legal basis on March 12, 2025. Without further process or legal justification, was removed to El Salvador by March 15, 2025. He was detained in Secot. And so they granted him, and they said, okay, defendants are hereby ordered to facilitate and effectuate the return of plaintiff Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia to the United States by no later than 11:59 p.m. on Monday, April 7, 2025. Okay. So what the Trump administration then did was appeal that decision to an appeals court, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. And let's hear what they had to say about it. They're like, okay, this comes to our desk. Let's see what's happening. The panel unanimously agrees that the district court's order requiring the government to facilitate and effectuate the return of Abrego Garcia to the United States by no later than 11:59 on April 7th should not be stayed. The government motion is denied. All right, to explain my view, the government has no legal authority to snatch a person who is lawfully present in the United States off the street and remove him from the country without due process. The government's contention otherwise and its argument that the federal courts are powerless to intervene are unconscionable. He has been lawfully present in the United States since 2019. He was granted withholding of removal to El Salvador. No criminal history, never been charged with the crime in the United States, El Salvador, or any country. And then they use like this fucking like euphemisms that that it was an administrative error. That's what the government said, right? It wasn't an administrative error. How do we know? Because they're defending it currently. They're saying they didn't do anything wrong. What do you mean error? How come in public you're saying, "Oh, we did everything right. It's perfect. We're doing exactly what we're supposed to do. This is what the people voted for." And then in court you're saying, "Yeah, we recognize our mistake. Sorry." All right, so we're gonna hear from his wife. See what she has to say.
Today is 34 days of after his disappearance, and I stand before you filled with spirit that refuses to bring down. I will not stop fighting until I see my husband alive. Kilmar, if you can hear me, stay strong. God hasn't forgotten about you. Our children are asking, when would you come home? And I pray for the day I tell them the time and date that you'll return. As we continue through Holy Week, my heart aches for my husband, who should have been here leading our Easter prayers. Instead, I find myself pleading with the Trump administration and the Bukele administration to stop playing political games with the life of Kilmar.
So that was sent to the district court. The district court said, "Hey, you are required to facilitate his return." They appealed that all the way to the Supreme Court. And what did the Supreme Court said? They said, "Hey, the United States acknowledges that he was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal to El Salvador, and that the removal to El Salvador was therefore illegal." 9-0 decision. The United States represents that the removal to El Salvador was the result of administrative error. The Chief Justice entered an administrative stay. The application is granted in part and denied in part, subject to the direction of this order. Due to the administrative stay issued by the Chief Justice, the deadline imposed, obviously, since they did it after the deadline, that can't be enforced. The rest of the district court's order remains in effect but requires clarification on demand. The order properly requires the government to facilitate Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not improperly been sent to El Salvador. The intended scope of the term effectuate in the district court's order is, however, unclear and may exceed the district court's authority. So what's being said here? So remember the original district court order. The defendants are hereby ordered to, that's the government Trump administration, to facilitate and effectuate the return of Garcia to the United States. Okay, so what the Supreme Court said is yes, they should facilitate it. They are required to by law. It is now, you would be defying a court order if you do not do the facilitation process, which is to help them get him back. And they said, okay, we need more clarification on what you mean by effectuate, because effectuate is facilitate basically means help. Effectuate means, cause to occur, right? So that can go anywhere from, okay, we're going to provide the planes, we're going to remove the funding for you to hold him, and we're going to provide the planes, get him back, all the way up until, Navy SEALs, send the Navy SEALs in to get him out of there, right? All that could be effectuate. So they're just asking him to clarify what it means to effectuate. That's all that's going on there. Now, from there, a couple days after that, Donald Trump and the president of El Salvador met in the White House. Perfect. The stars just fucking aligned, bro. You're here. You're allowed. You could talk to him face to face in front of the entire world and see what's going on here. So let's see what they had to say.
How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you could release him inside El Salvador?
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah. How can I...
Now notice the lies that these fucking weaseling degenerates are spreading in front of your ears right now. Like, right into your ears. These fucking degenerates. So, first of all, he calls him a terrorist. But I bet you if you asked him, what harm, what violence did he cause anybody for political purposes? Right? Whose rights did he violate for political purposes? He won't be able to answer that. He'll run away from that question. Right? He will run away from that question. And then they'll be like, oh, I don't want to release terrorists into my country or smuggle them back in. First of all, smuggle means that you're doing it under the United States radar. Right? But the question is, will the United States help him come back? That's not smuggling. That's transporting, you dumb fuck. All right. And then he says, oh, we're not going to release criminals back into our... This is a safe place. Well, he's not a criminal. He was never charged or convicted of any crime. This is how these motherfuckers will lie to you. They will lie over and over and over again. And it is the job of the media and the reporters to stop entertaining these lies and ask one simple question over and over and over again. Have you taken steps to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return to the United States? Yes or no? Watch them fold like a pretzel. Watch them crumble. Watch them cry like a little bit. You could say everything I don't care what you got to say. Have you taken steps to facilitate his return into the United States as ordered by the district court, as ordered and confirmed by the appeals court, and as ordered by the Supreme Court? Have you done that? Yes or no? If the answer is no, you are defying a court order. And it seems like, based off of this, because Donald Trump explicitly said they're basically both refusing to do it. They are refusing to return him back to the United States despite the law telling him not to, to do it. despite the law telling him to do it. Right? So you violated the law in deporting him, and now you're violating the law and bring him back. There's nothing else that matters here. I don't care if you think he's an upstanding. I don't even care if he was a member of the MS-13. If he was a member of the MS-13 gang, then he gets due process. You put that through the law. You put that through the courts. You do cross-examinations, and you determine whether he was an MS-13 gang member. And then when you do that, you get the withholding removal removed, and you get him deported to El Salvador. If you think that he actually like pushed his wife and like ripped her clothes and shit like that, even though she said that she did that out of precaution, they went through couples counseling and all that. If you actually believe that he did that, then put it through court, do cross-examinations, right? And do all that good stuff and undo the withholding order. Because if it is your position that we should illegally be allowed to illegally remove and deport people who are legally allowed to be here, then what is stopping me, if I run for president in 2028, from going to you, a homegrown president, a homegrown person, U.S. citizen? What is stopping me from saying, I don't like your speech, I don't like that you are criticizing my government, I'm going to deport you to El Salvador? What is stopping me from doing that? Give me a valid answer to that question. Thank you. Let's not gloss over the fact that also Megamind over here, this fucking lying subhuman vermin right here, this fucking Stephen Miller, he's over here lying about what the Supreme Court's ruling was. Let's hear what he has to say.
I promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
it
Court's
to get it
asking
back?
to.
And
that-
what was the
is that-
ruling
is that your
in the
position?
Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked.
Promise.
This is, it's like they're wearing like VR goggles. They're in a completely different reality. This motherfucker knows he's lying. He knows he's lying. He knows that's a lie. All of us can read the Supreme Court decision right now, and we know exactly what it says. They ruled against the Donald Trump administration. They didn't say anything about whether the district court can't like dictate foreign affairs. No, everybody agrees, and all the courts agree with the purview of the district court within limits. And they say, well, to determine what those limits are, you need to be more clear on what you mean by effectuate. But we agree that he should facilitate it. And you are doing basically journalistic malpractice if you are a fucking journalist and you don't know that. And you haven't investigated the distinction there. It's a fucking 3-page Supreme Court, 4-page Supreme Court decision. It's 4 pages. Read it before you go into the fucking White House. It says, hey, the Supreme Court agreed that Donald Trump is required to facilitate their return. Not effectuate, because that's up for debate of whether he should effectuate. But they agree that it was illegal. Do you agree with the Supreme Court's ruling? And that the remedy is to facilitate his return. The government made a mistake. And now the question is not whether they should correct the mistake, but how they should correct the mistake. That is the legal question that we're in right now. April 16, 2025. How the mistake should be remedied, not whether there was a mistake. I don't care about anything else. Okay? Whether you think he was fucking Mr. Rogers or like some gang member or whatever, I don't care what you think. The point is, he deserves due process. Everybody who is in this country deserves due process. And if your position is that he should not get due process because you personally think, in your own personal opinion, that he's a bad guy without it going through the court system, right? Then your position is that can apply to anyone. That can apply to you. So if you're a Republican and you support this shit, you're a fucking degenerate. You are not American. Get the fuck out of this country. I would deport you. Oh, you don't support due process? Okay, why the fuck should I keep you? Okay, if you don't, I'll be president in 2028. Okay, in 2029. And anybody who publicly states that they don't care about due process, I'm deporting to El Salvadorian prison. That's what I am doing. And by the way, if he was an MS-13 gang member, albeit like he's probably the most peaceful MS-13 gang member in existence because he's never like killed anyone or robbed anyone or been any part of any criminal activity whatsoever. He's the most peaceful MS-13 gang member in existence, right? Does that deserve being sent to a gulag? That's my question. Is that like the proportional response too? The reason why we have to stop against fight against this kind of stuff, we're kind of forced to, it's because of shit like this.
Continuing coverage this morning, President Donald Trump saying he's working on sending American-born criminals to foreign prisons. Now this as a legal battle continues over a Maryland father who was wrongfully deported. ABC's Andrew Dimbert gives us the details on the meeting between Trump and the El Salvadorian president.
In a live stream broadcast from inside the Oval Office, President Trump can be heard telling El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele he wants to send American citizens convicted of crimes to prison in El Salvador, as Trump calls them homegrowns.
I said, homegrowns are next.
Homegrowns are next. You're over here smiling with their shit-eating grin.
Homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places.
Yeah, that's big.
All right? It's not big enough.
Bukele has taken in hundreds of migrants deported from the U.S. accused of being gang members, sending them here to this mega prison called SECOD in exchange for millions of dollars. Trump mentioning the idea again minutes later to reporters as he sat down with his cabinet, including Attorney General Pam Bondi.
To Pam, I don't know what the laws are. We always have to obey the laws, but we also have homegrown.
Always have to obey the laws, guys. We always have to. All right, we gotta do what's right. Okay, Captain America over here. I love that shit, bro.
Criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat.
That get convicted of 34 different felonies. That get, Wait, so like under this view, like we can just deport Donald Trump. He is a convicted felon. He's an adjudicated sex offender. So what is stopping President John Ossoff or Gretchen Whitmer or Tim Walz from deporting Donald Trump to an El Salvadorian prison? Actually, I would low-key. Let's go. What's stopping them? You are a convicted felon. You are a violent rapist. Why should I not send you to El Salvadorian prison? Oh, the skin color is a little too high. I got you. Maybe if he gets a different shade of the orange, tan shit, I think maybe we can justify deporting him then. Maybe just a darker shade. If it goes from orange to brown, then I can deport him, maybe.
When they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country.
Trump says it would help with...
Yeah, that's why. That is why we're talking about this right now. Not only is it bad in and of itself that he deported somebody illegally, right? It's also the logical entailment. If it is your position that it is permissible to deport somebody illegally, if that's the position of the conservatives, if that's the position of MAGA minions, okay, that it is permissible to deport a person illegally, that is the standard you are setting. Why is it wrong for him to therefore deport somebody who was born here? Because they had committed a crime. And what's the standard of the crime then? What's the standard of the crime? Because all you have to do is deport this person before any judicial review, and then just claim, hey, you can't get them back. We don't have that. We don't have that authority. So why would I even need to delineate based off whether they've committed a crime or not? Why can't I just accuse them publicly in an unofficial statement to have committed a crime, order ICE to detain them, and deport them to an El Salvadorian gulag? Why can't I do that? That is the question on the table. Why, if Donald Trump can do this, why can I not do that situation that I just described? I want to know a reasoned answer. What is going to be the reasonable distinction? If the law is not the distinct, all that matters is my personal views as the as the head of the executive branch, if that is matter in the law, and that personal view supersedes the law, then there is nothing stopping the next president from deporting Donald Trump to an El Salvadorian president. Donald Trump, it doesn't even have to be a criminal. There's nothing stopping Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, Elon Musk. I could just deport Elon Musk no matter what. I just want to know, why would that be wrong? This is clear case. This is like cut and dry. There is no ambiguity here. This was an illegal action. This was a kidnapping, an abduction.
America's prison population. According to the Department of Justice, in 2022, there were more than 1.2 million people in prisons in the U.S. Trump's call to deport American criminals opens a trove of legal questions. Ultimately, whether Americans can be kicked out of their own country. Trump says sending criminals to El Salvador would save the U.S. money with what he calls great security.
By the way, he's spending $6 million to keep 200-something people in that prison. $6 million.
A huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem.
In a new interview with Fox Noticias,
It's crazy, bro. I have no problem. And I have a question here. If tariffs, because like the whole Trump administration, they're just like saying that, oh, that we don't have the power to do that anyway, even if we wanted to, right? They're just saying, hey, we don't have that power, right? But if tariffs are such good negotiating tools, we have a lot of imports from El Salvador, fabrics, clothing, stuff like that. We have a lot of imports from them. So can't we just use tariffs to, negotiate, Mr. Master Negotiator? Can't we do that? If tariffs work so fucking well, then why can't we tariff a little bit on El Salvador and say, hey, I'm going to keep these tariffs in place until you return him? Because they're such powerful negotiating tools, right? Interesting. Now you got this motherfucker, JD Vance. He's chiming in. Now he's defending the illegality of this, right? So check this out. Consider that Joe Biden allowed approximately 20 million illegal aliens into our country. First sentence is already false. I don't know where he's getting this 20 million numbers allowed in. Is he just counting all interactions at the border and assuming that all interactions were allowed in and not deported or removed back? Is that what he's assuming? Because that 20, they're just making that shit up. That is false. This placed extraordinary burdens on our country. Our schools, hospital, housing, and other essential services were overwhelmed. No, it's not. On top of that, many of these illegal aliens committed violent crimes or facilitated fentanyl sex trafficking. That is a situation we inherited. The American people elected Trump to solve this problem. The president has successfully stopped the inflow of illegal aliens, and now we must deport the people who came here illegally. To say the administration must observe due process is to beg the question. What the process is due is a function of our resources, the public interest, and status of the accused, proposed punishment, and so many. To put it in concrete terms, imposing the death penalty on an American citizen requires more legal process than reporting an illegal alien. When the media and the far left obsess over an MS-13 gang member, he's not a gang member, and demand that he be returned to the United States for a third deportation hearing, what they're really saying is they want the vast majority of illegal aliens to stay here permanently. So he's lying there. If the answer is no, yeah. So, okay. So all he's saying here, and anybody who rationally interprets this, is that he is too weak to defend the Constitution. He does not care about due process. He gave an oath to the Constitution, put his hand on the little fucking Bible and shit, right? He said, I will defend the oath Constitution. And within 3 months, he's already caving on it. He said, it's too hard, Americans. It's too hard for me to defend the Constitution. It is too difficult for me. I can't do it. Then fucking resign and get another fucking job. Get an easier job. You're weak. You took an oath to defend the Constitution, even when it's hard to. Twice. You're in the fucking army, Marines, my guy. You're a fucking coward. Again, vermin. Vermin occupying the fucking White House right now. Every single one of these motherfuckers should be impeached. Due process is too hard. And now we got a judge over here, District Court of Columbia, finding probable cause for holding him in contempt. On the evening Saturday, March 15th, this court issued a temporary restraining order barring the government from transferring certain individuals into foreign custody pursuant to the Alien Enemies Act. At the time of the order, those individuals were on planes being flown overseas, having been spirited out of the United States by the government before they could vindicate their due process rights by contesting their removability in a federal court as the law requires. Rather than comply with the court's order, the government continued to hurried removal operation. Early on Sunday morning, hours after the order issued, it transferred 2 plane loads passengers protected by the TRO into a Salvadoran mega prison. As this opinion will detail, the court ultimately determines that the government's actions on that day demonstrate a willful disregard for this order, sufficient for the court to conclude that a probable cause exists to find the government in criminal contempt. The court does not reach such conclusion lightly or hastily. Indeed, it has given defendants ample opportunity to rectify or explain their actions. None of their responses have been satisfactory. Do not ask these motherfuckers any other questions other than, do you agree that it was illegal to deport this man? Is it permissible to deport somebody illegally against the law? Is that the Trump administration's position? I don't care. They're trying to like shift the burden of proof. They're trying to shift all these things because they lost. On the legal field, they are done. They are cooked. It is over. There is no legal question here at all. This was illegal. The removal was illegal. And the failure to bring him back, that is also illegal. There is no legal question there. So because they lost that, now they're going into the public sphere because they can't say this kind of shit in court, that he's a terrorist, you know, that he's a violent criminal, MS-13 gang member and things like that. They're sending folks to camps in other countries. The Nazis literally did that shit. Auschwitz isn't in fucking Germany. This is Nazi shit, yeah. He also made a similar oath when he swore in as a Marine officer. I did that, when I was commissioned. To me, that's a lifelong oath. Even though I'm now retired, to me, my oath doesn't retire until I am dead. Vance has no honor at all. He's weak. He's a pussy bitch. That's what he is. Every single one of these motherfuckers should be impeached and convicted. Get you your 18 or 20 senators who would get along with that and put them on fucking display. If they say no, you're allowed to illegally deport people. Make sure that every single person knows their name and get them on record saying that. I don't care if he actually gets convicted. Get them on fucking record. This shit is ridiculous. 3 months. Andrew, thank you for the $5 super chat. MAGA doesn't care about rules of law. They only care about owning the libs and not feeling like losers because they have Trump on their side. Yeah. We are going to look at what's getting started, which is probably, I don't know how serious this is going to become, but we're going to look at this clip from Sebastian Gorka, who is in the Trump administration currently. He was also in the previous Trump administration, where he explicitly stated that advocating for due process for Garcia could be determined by the Trump administration to be aiding and abetting a terrorist. So free speech, right? So, yeah.
Realize that the taxonomy of politics in America is dead. It's not left and right. It's not even Republican or Democrat. There's one line that divides us. Do you love America or do you hate America? It's really quite that simple. And we have people who love America, like the president, like his cabinet, like the directors of his agencies, who want to protect Americans. And then there is the other side that is on the side of the cartel members, on the side of the illegal aliens, on the side of the terrorists. And you have to ask yourself, are they technically aiding and abetting them? Because aiding and abetting criminals and terrorists is a crime in federal statute, Rob.
So why is the Trump administration threatening criminal activity for people who stand up for the law, is my question. Is he going to fire him? Are we going to bring him before a court? Are we going to bring him into Congress and question him about whether he is threatening the freedom of speech of Americans to advocate for due process? I want to know.